He's a government overseas merit scholar. He's also a financial whiz, having held management positions mostly in companies like GIC, Mitsubishi Bank, Solomon Brothers, Merrill Lynch, OCBC, and DBS Bank. And currently, he runs his own investment company. He's got the academic and work credentials of a typical PAP election candidate. But he's Assistant Secretary General of the Progress Singapore Party, or PSP. Leong Man Wai, welcome to Inconvenient Questions.
Thank you, Rizwan. My pleasure to be here today. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, let's get down to it. Let's get down to business now.
Okay.
For a political newbie, and you are a political newbie for all intents and purposes, right?
Yes.
You've made some seriously audacious statements. Now, take this, for example, right? You said the PSP will be the most credible alternative choice to the people, probably in the electoral history of this country. I mean, that's really big statement you're making. More powerful than the Workers' Party ever was, more powerful than the Barisan Socialist was, because you talk about the history of the country, right? You also said that the PSP aims to win 32 seats, which is 1/3 of the total seats in Parliament in this election. Now, these are really strong statements coming from a newbie. Now, are you usually this audacious? Do you like making these kind of big statements? Or do you really mean what you say? And if you do, on what basis did you make these statements?
Okay, Vizwa. I think actually those statements were made in the context of in relation to the whole opposition or alternative camp, actually. I think I make the statement referring to that for this coming GE, the candidate slate for the whole alternative alliance will be one of the most credible slate in the electoral history of Singapore. Okay, I think.
So on what basis? On what basis do you say that? You don't even know what the Workers' Party, SDP, and the other parties are fielding. So how do you crystal gaze and come up with an assertion like this?
Actually, it's not crystal gaze. We actually maintain very close contact with all the parties, okay, in the alternative camp. And we more or less know that they're going to field most of the same candidates as in the last election. So on top of that, this election, you have PSP as a new party, but nevertheless, with many new but good candidates. And also you have People's Voice. And now the latest, you even have Red Dot United. So there are actually many new candidates coming onto the scene, and I think that would make the coming election, a very, very exciting one with a very big slate of qualified candidates.
In a nutshell, can you tell us what is the PSP's and what is your primary position for this election? What's your stance? What's your key message in this election?
Our key message will be, in order for for us to implement change in Singapore, we will need to be a credible party, and we will be a significant part of that overall alternative alliance that will get into the parliament with at least 32 seats. Okay, because with 32 seats, then we will be able to make the impact by denying the current government of amending the constitution at will. Okay, so the slogan for our party.
So what you're saying is that you're going to be the aim of not just PSP but the entire alternative camp.
Yes.
For this election is to deny the ruling party, which is the PAP,
yes,
a 2/3 majority.
Right.
To move motions.
Correct.
Easily. All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Of course, I can't really speak on behalf of everybody, although we do maintain a very friendly and cooperative relationship with them, and we think that our objectives are aligned. Okay.
But if you're so sanguine, if you're so confident that you are so aligned, then why is it that there's likely to be a three-cornered fight in West Coast GRC? Why is it that the Reform Party can't be persuaded? You tried, you're still trying. Why can't the Reform Party, for example, be persuaded to step out of the race in West Coast GRC?
Well, we it is not easy to get all the parties to agree. Okay, but by and large, I think even in the coming general elections, the alternative camp have by and large come together and is willing to more or less collaborate with one another. However, it is not, there may still be some three-corner fights, but the negotiation and the cooperational spirit that has been going on among the parties are so far very encouraging. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to the question of what is your key message in this election for you and the party PSP? What's the key message to the electorate?
Okay, our key message will be progress with compassion. You deserve better. So compassion is our key word.
Can you elaborate? That sounds a bit like a motherhood statement.
Okay, when we look at the current situation, what we think is that we are pursuing GDP growth at the expense of the people. Okay, so we need compassion. Okay, when we conduct our economic policies. Okay, so by putting compassion back into the center of our economy and society, we will be able to achieve much better results. Okay, in our opinion, because if you pursue the economic growth alone, it is likely, as we have seen already, to lead to a fragmented society. But whereas compassion is what we need, okay, to glue the society together and lead to a society that's more united, okay, and will be able to achieve bigger things.
Obviously, you're suggesting that that's not the case right now.
That's not the case right now.
Are you suggesting that it's economic growth at all costs right now?
Yes. Right now it's economic growth at all costs, you know.
So what can you specify? What is an example of a change that you'd like to implement that is different from current economic policy?
Okay, for example, I think most importantly are jobs. Okay, we think that the current policy pursued by the government is actually denying a lot of our local Singaporeans, especially the PMET Singaporeans, of jobs. Okay, so we think that this policy of quite free and uncontrolled, foreign PMETs coming into the Singapore job market ought to be controlled and ought to be reviewed and controlled immediately.
Do you have evidence to suggest that it is not controlled?
Okay, the statistics are difficult to sort of piece together all the statistics, okay, because there's no total transparency yet, okay. But nevertheless, from anecdotal and from some of the indirect analysis that we make on the employment figures, I think we are fairly confident. And that is also the feedback we got from the ground, okay, that many people are very worried about their jobs, and not necessarily just because of COVID, but because of some of the past policies that are already in the system.
So what would you do specifically to change it, PSP?
Okay. As I said just now, we would recommend an urgent review of the policies of allowing foreign PMETs to come into Singapore, tighten the rules of allowing them employment. So we would want to suggest implementing quota, stricter screening for even employment past holders. Okay, we will also want the Ministry of Manpower to be more serious about the central job banks so that they screen the foreign PMETs more strictly to ensure that really there are no Singaporeans who can do the job before they take on the foreign PMET. We have enough information and experience, because I'm a company owner myself, that the check on whether enough consideration was given to a Singaporean when considering a job offer, that part is actually not done very strictly at the moment. So those are the few things that we will want to implement immediately.
Okay. So your message is compassion for progress, right?
Yes. Progress with compassion. Yes.
Progress with compassion. Okay.
Yes.
Now, so far you talked about the economic policies.
Yes.
Now, what about the political aspects? What about the social aspects of society? How would you translate this message in those areas?
Okay, I think compassion basically will leads to more motivated citizens, people, and that is the key, okay, to economic development going forward. Real economic development by our people and for our people, okay? Because people are the most important economic input in the economic development process, okay? So going forward, when you have this more balanced economic development, naturally, actually, the whole income distribution will become more equitable. But nevertheless, in the short term, in order to further our goal of building a compassionate society, in the social area, we will be recommending increasing ComCare, okay, introducing a minimum living wage to first take care of our needy Singaporeans, okay, who are in the bottom 10 or 20% of the income.
Manwai, what
Yes.
are your current reservations about the government's approach to catering to the bottom 25%? In terms of, I mean, you know, the government is not in favor, has not been in favor of minimum wage, right?
Yes.
Now, what is your criticism about that?
We think that actually at this stage of our economic development, we should not be, that should not be what I call the sacrosanct anymore. I think we should introduce minimum living wage. Okay, that means how much we need to live in Singapore, because we are city-state, you know, we are not a very big country whereby even if you don't have the income, you can go back to the countryside and you still can live. But in Singapore, you don't have the cash, you can't live, okay? So there must be a minimum living wage for Singaporeans. We would strongly recommend that. Okay? And also in terms of the ComCare payout at the moment, I think they are small, and the way that it is handed out is not, didn't give enough consideration to the our Singaporeans' dignity. I think it should be a more permanent, more easy to sort of apply for scheme. Okay, the amount ought to be increased. And also we have feedback, and we check the rules that when someone who is on ComCare and he take on a job, straight away his ComCare payment is disqualified. So we think that there should be also an easing in process. That means if when he take on a job of $1,200, for example, we should not take away his ComCare immediately, but slowly, you know, we should let him have enough time to adjust. Okay, and when he get into a higher level of salary or wages, then we take away the ComCare. So the current government, the inadequacy of the current ComCare system in Singapore, we think is one, the amount is not quite sufficient. Secondly, how they ease in and they give enough incentives for people to get out of ComCare. What one of our ministers say, social trampoline, okay? The trampoline is actually not there, okay? You know, if you want really a trampoline, then you actually have to slowly ease out the ComCare, where even when you take on a job, okay? So those are some of the details, yeah.
So if I could go back to your earlier point about minimum wage.
Okay.
Now, the government's argument...
Actually, there's a difference between minimum wage and minimum living wage.
Living wage.
Our focus is living wage.
Living wage. I understand. And there's a difference. Now, but the government is not in favor of that either, right?
Yes.
Now, I believe that the government's argument is transfers are more effective because it is more personalized. It is. You know, minimum wage is it's across the board. Minimum living wage is across the board. But the government's approach, and this is my understanding of the argument, is that it's more effective to find out people's needs and then give them what they need. You know, and custom make it and give them what they need as a combination of cash and vouchers. You know, that's the government's argument. It's not altogether. It does make sense to some extent.
Okay.
How would you respond to that?
That is actually one of the major objections we have with regards to the government approach to dishing out the social, the welfare payments and all that. Okay, because while you dish out the payment, which of course, you know, we can easily find people slipping into complacency and then, you know, be so dependent on the social net. So we have to avoid that. We understand that as well. But at the same time, we think that the way the government is doing at the moment by handing out a short-term relief, okay, does not, okay, allow the Singaporeans to do more long-term planning. Whereas if you have a plan in place and say that the moment you slip below this, don't worry, we'll be there to help you, so that you can take your time and then bounce back, okay? So I think that sort of certainty and long-term plans coming from the certainty coming from those long-term plans would allow our citizens, our fellow Singaporeans, to plan better, okay? We totally actually object to the current way the government is doing. Even in this COVID situation, you know, they are handing out JSS, you know, and all that, and say, oh, you will just for the next 3 months, okay, we extend another 3 months. How can you plan business by just having a 3 months or 6 month horizon? Okay, they should be more bold, because the government already saying that this COVID situation is not going to go away so soon. At least a year, maybe 2 years. So then you should have that resolve. And we are not a country without those financial resources, but you must use those resources smart, in a very clever way. Because by giving out money, at the same time, you should also instill confidence. For example, saying that the JSS will be there for 1 year and maybe 1 more year. That would actually instill a lot of confidence. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, we're running out of time, so I just want to ask you the third dimension about politics. Right?
Okay.
Let's talk about compassion. You talked about compassion in the area of economics, in the area of social.
Yes.
Now, compassion in the area of politics. Do you have any comment on that?
I think I think political progress or political development of country takes time. Okay, it depends on how we all Singaporeans want the level of freedom, democracy we have. But the angle that we take for the political system with regards to politics is also related to social and economic, okay? In the sense that we think that with the current governing philosophy, we probably cannot make further progress in our economic system, okay? And with that, we will not be able to beef up or make further improvement to our social system, okay? Let me elaborate, okay? Because in order for our economic model to move to a higher level or the next level of development, you can't be a central command economy like more or less we have today, okay? Okay, we technically speaking is not central command, okay?
We're not a command economy.
Yeah, but there's a lot of intervention. Like for example, the power of the GRC is very, is still pretty influential.
GRC as in government-linked companies.
Yes, government-linked companies. And also most importantly, the government has very strong control over property prices and rental. And that is a major component of the economic cost, okay? With all these things in the economy, and most importantly, is a top-down direction, even in terms of developing the SMCs. Okay, so SMEs, okay, so those are the things that we think need change, okay, and even without political change, as long as the political system allow this change by allowing a more a bottoms-up approach to economic development, what we call the blossoming of 1,000 flowers at the same time, rather than waiting for the CEO to give instruction each time, okay? That is very important for the development of a more balanced and vibrant economy going forward.
Okay. Of course, one would want to hear more details.
Yes.
Right? As they say, the devil is in the details.
Yes.
But it sounds good, what you say. Makes sense. But
thank you.
In terms of implementation,
yes,
we need to see whether that works or not. And
yes,
you see, that the onus is on the government, the ruling party, to
yes,
actually implement and be tested.
Yes.
And one would argue that opposition parties or the alternative camp, you can actually throw darts and walk away.
Yes.
How would you respond to that in one sentence? How would you respond to that? An
okay,
argument that you don't have the responsibility to make decisions.
Okay, one is from the current performance of the government and the way they conduct the policy, we know that they are not moving the economy in the direction that I have explained, okay? So you need a credible voice in parliament to urge them on, okay? And to basically give them a little bit more push and remind them, hey, the people's voice is that you should change your direction. So the opposition or the alternative camp, although they will still not be able to make the decisions or implement the policies, as long as they are a credible voice with enough numbers of seats in parliament, I think it will make a major impact on the next direction that the government is going to take.
Leong, thank you very much for joining me on Inconvenient Questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.